What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Tyler here again, and I have the privilege of being joined by my great friend Joshua Harrison. Josh is the principal at Conway Christian, and he is a pioneer with regards to innovation in the classroom. He's one of the best culture people I've ever met with students, schools, districts. He does an incredible job with helping move things forward, making a positive culture, and I think he's got a lot of really great experiences and thoughts to run by you guys that you can apply in your classroom or, your whole school if you're an administrator, or you as a teacher make a difference in the whole school. Why don't you go ahead and do that right now? Go ahead.
All
Josh, did I miss anything? Do you got any accolades you want to throw in there? All these great things you've done?
Just a major mustache game that's going on right now.
Mustache game's strong, that's for sure.
Plus it works with the little COVID, mask.
Yeah, that's right. It keeps that away.
Keeps that away.
Yeah. Speaking of, this is not speaking of COVID at all, but we got our Mumford & Sons matching shirts on.
Hey, that's how we do it.
Bring it for you guys. We bring it straight to you guys, straight from not Compton, but like Central Arkansas at least.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So Josh is going to start us off, and we're just going to have a conversation and talk about some cool stuff you can do.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, I've known Tyler for a long time since he was an actual student. It's
right.
Great story. Tyler was a student of mine back in the day. He was my assistant coach there when he was a senior, when I was coaching basketball.
Yeah, well, it was fun stuff. We had a good run.
And then Tyler came back as my peer, as my colleague, and then my boss for a while.
Yeah, that was fun.
And now we're just friends.
Now we're just friends. We're just boys now. We're just doing conferences with you guys.
Just doing conferences. So one of the things that him and I really kind of hit to our heart is being creative, being innovative for our kids and for our students. And so Schools of Innovation, that's something that we've been really, really excited about, figuring out the best ways to do that. And to me, innovation in education really comes down to three things. It's finding out what the needs and the strengths of three groups are. Your community, where you live, where your school is, where those constituents are. It's your kids, your family. So for us at Conway Christian, it's not just our students, but it's the families that those students are a part of and what their strengths, what their needs are. And lastly, it's the strengths of your staff. And so whenever we're looking at what makes a school innovative and what makes a school change and flow, it's going to be those three groups that we take into account. So that's what we want to talk about a little bit today, is all three of those different groups and kind of how we can hit them and how we could utilize them to make this, a crazy, fun, wild, exciting place to be and the best learning environment for not only our kids, but for all the kids in the community. So.
Absolutely. And so with regards to schools that you've had experience in and in the situations like this, you mentioned COVID, which a lot of us had, I say a lot of us, everybody pretty much went remote learning. Whenever you were a principal, you were the principal of a school that had a combination of in-person classrooms, in-person teachers, but then also blended learning where it's mixed up with regards to how it's delivered, and then also fully online. How do you see, because you talked about three pretty important parts of it, with regards to that role, how did you control the culture in the community when you have students that aren't there in person? Because I know a lot of teachers see a disconnect with that digital divide. Like, how did you still have community even though you're not seeing parents every single day, you're not seeing students every single day? Like, what were some of the tips or things you learned?
Well, whenever we were at Minor Academy, whenever I was at Minor Academy in Bauxite, one of the things that we had is we did use a lot of online platforms. Or we had an LMS that we used. We also had in teachers that were actually in the classroom, and so the teachers were there to help and to help accentuate what we were doing online. So the biggest thing that we did there was we built relationships. We knew the needs of our kids. So once we knew the needs of our kids and kind of what their strengths and weaknesses were, it was easier for us to figure out how to best serve them. Yeah. So in a situation like this, when we come into 2019, 2020, we come into this weird situation, we didn't go with the straight AMI packet type thing. We actually had one parent that said, we're just doing AMI work, should it really matter? And I said, we're not doing AMI work. We're continuing our education of what we need to be learning and what our kids need to get for this last quarter of 2020. And so we actually were able to take that model that we had before, like we were using at Minor Academy, because one of our biggest things here at Conway Christian is building relationships, building rapport, getting to know the kids. So we know their strengths and weaknesses, know which kids needs a little more help, which kids may need a little bit more time, which kids we may need to adjust their stuff a little bit. So we were actually able to work with those kids a little bit closer, and the teachers knew kind of their needs. So we like a lot of schools, and we weren't doing anything probably that is breaking the mold, but we were Zooming with our kids as far as a whole group. We were Zooming with just maybe the girls in one class and the boys in another class, just to be able to talk and have a good discussion. But we were also the teachers were also doing a lot of one-on-one Zooming. So if a kid needs individualized help, they were coming with them and they were doing some tutoring and stuff between either FaceTime or Zooming one-on-one, so that way they could get that help. And because we knew that there's certain kids that needed that little extra to pump them through. We try to focus on those main things that they needed to know to kind of give them the foundations for the next year, because this is unprecedented. I mean, every week we kind of made adjustments. We started off, we were doing all 7 classes every day of the week.
Yeah.
Then we started making adjustments, and we started going to kind of a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday model, kind of a block model. But we did that with the core classes, and then Friday we use that as elective. So we were trying to find creative ways to take some of the stress and pressure off of the families, because I feel like we were stressing families out because those parents weren't teachers. You know, they're not the ones teaching math. So if we can focus a little bit more on giving great instruction, so the teachers were actually creating videos of lessons of them doing, and then they would Zoom with them to kind of go over ideas and questions they had. But we were able to focus more on math a few days a week and focus on science a few days a week, and that way there was less for those. Then it wasn't as overwhelming for the kids and the parents. So it's kind of how we try to approach this kind of strange time. So, you know, we really needed to know kind of our constituents.
Yeah, and you talked about that with regards to how do you, I know it's hard to shape, you know, your community's culture, but how do you either make an impact or you, like you said, you understand it and you meet the needs of your community? What are some things that you've done in the past as a district administrator or as a principal with regards to that?
Well, I think you know, when I look at the community, I look at like what is the strength of the community? What are we doing well in our community, and where are some places that we lack? As a school, we like to put our kids out in the community to serve. That's one of our biggest heart here at Conway Christian, is to serve. And so we're looking at, you know, whether it's at a food bank or whether it's you know, just going out and being able to, our choir, we have a great choir, and going out to sing to some elderly people in our community, but find the needs of our community. Also, we want to find the strengths of our community, and we want to let our kids learn from that. So we like to get our kids out and do some where they're going into the different businesses and actually be able to work with some of those business owners to get to know what they need and what our kids need to learn as they get older. And so I think if we don't utilize that, we're missing a major thing, because we need to know what our kids should be learning, not just the content, but in some instances what those businesses are looking for our kids to know. So it's more than just content. You know, it's how do we speak to customers? How do we handle certain situations? And it's great to get them in an actual workplace to be able to see what's going on and put their hands on stuff, get their hands dirty, so to speak, or at least kind of see a little bit more what's going on in the community and what our community is bringing to the table here in Arkansas. Yeah,
that's really cool. And I love to, when you do that, what you're doing is you're building in those students, like, hey, this is important to us. Not just your education, but it's important to us that you serve, that you volunteer, that you're connected with the community. And so it allows them to build that in them now as they go out into the workforce or to college or, you know, extending their education. So what are some other things that you've seen as far as being an innovator with schools or building culture or connecting with community?
You know, I mean, when it comes down to the students, you really got to find their heart.
Yeah.
All kids learn differently. I went to school thinking I was going to do something in the medical field, do something in science. When I went to college, took a whole bunch of science classes and did well in them, but it was miserable. You know, ended up taking a drawing class for fun one semester. I've always loved to draw, and I'm like, hey, I need to major in art. Yeah. And so I majored in art, loved it, just absolutely loved it, and then figured, what am I going to do with this? You know? So my thought process was always a little bit different. So I think when it comes to students, we put them in straight rows, and we give them the same book, and we give them the same assignment, and we expect them all to come up with the same answers to those basic questions. And I think at times that's when students become stagnant. That's whenever they become bored with the system, and they become kind of, I don't know, wanting to kind of get away from what's going on in that classroom. They get bored. They lose interest, and then sometimes that's when they have troubles, not only academically but socially and behaviorally. So I think giving them things and to where they can actually play off their strengths. So one of the things we tried to do whenever I was at Minor Academy, and definitely one of the things we're working on here and changing that culture here a little bit, is to take each kid where they're at, try to figure out where they're going, and then we have to determine what it will take for us to get them there, and that's going to look different for every kid. For me, the days of the straight row, the sit and get type stuff is gone. It is useful and needed in certain areas. I know there's times when you need the recitation in math, but there's also those times that we need to give the kids choice, and we need to say, what is your strength? What can you bring into it, and what can you teach your colleagues, your peers, through your research, through what you do. So we love the idea of choice boards. We started that at Minor Academy one year, had an English teacher that helped us kind of develop some choice boards. And what we did, we basically said, all right, kids, if you want, let's say you want an A, you need 900 points. If you want a B, you need at least 800 points. We gave them options. So they could have large, let's say maybe they have writing projects that they could come up. They may be 50 points apiece. They may have a major research paper that may be worth 200 points. They could have a project, like some sort of creative project that may be worth 150 points, or creating a video that may be worth 25 points or 30 points. So we gave them different options on those choice boards, and that gave them a chance to find what their strengths were and be able to play off those strengths. Now, they may still have to write some papers, say if it's an English class, but they also can create something. So to me, if you're talking about the theme of Romeo and Juliet and you make a 30-second movie trailer based on that theme, or you do a schematic drawing of something, or maybe a movie poster based on the theme that you've created, you still have to do research. So whether you're writing a paper, you're creating something, you're drawing something, you're building something, kids are going to learn. And then they're going to bring that to the table, and other kids are going to learn based on theirs. So I really believe that giving kids choice and finding out what their strengths are will help not only them learn better, but help their peers that are around them learn as well.
Yeah, that's good. Speaking of that, like, I know that whenever you're the principal, there was a ton of technology there. Mm-hmm. Like, we had devices for every student. You know, they had options, some Chromebooks, some iPads, some MacBooks. Like, we had options for students. What are some practical things that you learned with regards to teaching students utilizing technology? Like, I know teachers now, like you said, you mentioned AMI packets earlier. Yeah. We've talked about, we want to do some Zoom calls. Like, what are some ideas that you learned, like, being in the trenches of this before it was required for everybody?
Right.
Like, do you have any tips for teachers that are pushing to that technology?
I mean, there's so many things changing. Like, from the time I was at Minor Academy just to now, which has just been a few years, technology has changed completely. So there's so many new apps and different things. I mean, honestly, we ask kids all the time, hey, what are you finding? What are you using? Teachers, what are you utilizing? So, we went to the old, solid Google Classroom here whenever we had to go to that, because our kids were already comfortable with it, our staff was comfortable with it, our parents were comfortable with it, and so we felt like whenever we all of a sudden we went to virtual learning, to distance learning this year for that last 9 weeks, we stuck with Google Classroom, but we utilized there's different platforms that we use. Of course, you've got Google Hangout now, and we've got Zoom, and everybody's gotten comfortable with those, so we kind of stuck with some of those solid things. But now what we found is that some of the math teachers found some really cool apps in math that they started using, and then same thing with science, found some stuff. So the one thing I told our staff from this year is, like, make notes, bring together, when we come back together, let's bring all these things that we learned, and let's try to help each other become stronger, better people. And that's one of the things when we say innovation with staff. It's like, what are their strengths? Well, we have one teacher that's been teaching math for 25 years. She never videoed herself. She's never put anything online like that. She's done everything through paper. So she actually became a better teacher in this quarter, that she had to get herself out of her comfort zone. She was up in her classroom a lot this quarter, just recording videos and doing Google, doing some Zooms and Google Hangouts with her students, just trying to do some one-on-one stuff with them. But she became a stronger teacher. She also utilized a few of us, staff members, and a few other teachers to kind of give her pointers and to help her. So we probably became better because we helped her learn different things as well. So, I mean, the biggest thing I would say is as a teacher, you guys have so much more knowledge of what's out there than I do educationally as far as technology, but share that with your administrators, share it with each other, share it with your students. Ask your students what they're using, because they're using stuff, I promise. Especially when it comes
TikTok.
to do math.
They're on TikTok. I don't know if they're doing math on TikTok, but they're on TikTok for sure.
Oh, it's all that. You look at all that, the basketball stuff and all that stuff that's on TikTok. They're probably doing math on TikTok somewhere.
Yeah, there's some sort of a parabola that we can just dissect those shots. Yeah, for real. That's crazy. It's wild to me to see how fast technology changes. And one of my things that you said, I think you summarized it great. You guys were using Google Classroom, and so when you made the shift, you were like, we're already using it.
Right.
We're comfortable with it. My thing is, and I think teachers, a lot of times agree, is when there's a new trend or there's a new app or a new something, it's like they feel like it's a requirement. Administrators a lot of times like it's a requirement to do it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't incorporate. You should incorporate. Hey kids, make this video or do this or do this TikTok related to the American Revolution. Whatever it is, you should incorporate those. But I'm talking about like full programs. Like how many full programs have you seen go through in your time in education? Like it's like, oh, we got to use this and this and this. And whenever we did the same thing, we were using Google Classroom. Mm-hmm. And my thought is, like 98% of these students, they used Google Classroom in high school. Why shift that to a college? Why make them learn something completely new when Google Classroom works great and it's free? It's like, use the programs that people are comfortable with so people aren't stressed out and being like, not only do I have to learn, the Pythagorean theorem online, I've got to learn a whole new LMS or a whole new system or a whole new delivery. It's like, if you can do it, use it. And there's enough resources out on the internet that you can put into Google Classroom to teach and learn. And that's one of the things, I've talked to some leaders, and I'd love to see what you guys are thinking for the fall too. I've talked to some leaders about, like, they're pitching, okay, if we can have regular classes, it'll be regular. But if not, we might have to do like a hybrid model where it's like half the students come on Monday, Wednesday, some come on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday's, optional. And then others are just like, no, we're prepping all virtual. What do you do? Do you buy something? Do you spend something? And I've been on the end as an administrator where we dished out, 40 to 50 grand a year on an LMS. But what I told them is I said, look, you are right now at the point where used to we asked our teachers, we want you to create videos, like you said, we want you to do this. Now it's like they have to teach their classes. So if you can, you could pay 40 to 100 grand for an LMS, which would be great. But then at the end of the year, do you have that next year? No, you're paying another amount. Whereas if you spend a year or two developing these skills, filming videos, collaborating with other teachers, talking, sharing, finding resources. The internet's a big place. Yeah. You can find stuff on the internet. Like, it's everywhere. Students find stuff all the time on the internet when you're wanting to learn something else.
Oh, they find, like, videos of people teaching math that looks a lot like you.
Yeah.
Just with, like, way more bangs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing. I'm like, it looks just like Tyler, but with way more bangs.
The hair was like, and it was like curved to the side. I was like, I taught like that. Like, I walked in wearing khakis and a shirt, looking like I just got off the scarecrow.
Rapping about math. It's one of my favorite ones.
That was good. Let's show that video quick here.
Subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Dude, that was crazy. That's the thing. Students know, like, when you're trying to make things difficult for them versus like, hey, I understand that you're stressed or you're trying to learn this along with learning this. Like, let's stop making things so complicated for the sake of complication. And I know that looks different in every classroom. Yeah. It looks different in every school. And I know we don't all have control on that, but I think that too often there are things that we overcomplicate that can be simplified.
Well, I think for you guys, for the teachers, I think it's the same thing. I talked to my science teacher. She's been teaching science for almost 30 years. Great teacher. She really builds into her kids. She knows her content. But when it came to having to create a video, having to do these Zooms, having to do that every day of the week during this fourth, ninth week that they were out, she was really stressed. And so, that's one of the things I started talking to her, talking to some other ones, and we made adjustments. We actually went after, we waited for the first 2 weeks, and then once the governor said, look, we're not coming back to school, we're going to do this till the end of the year, we made an adjustment right then. Because we want to be prepared to come right back to school. If we were going to come back into a 7-period-a-day model, we were going to have to come back in a 7-period-a-day model. We need to be ready. But once they said we weren't, said, all right, what does this look like? Sat down with a few other of my staff members, and we decided what best way to approach it. So we actually cut it, and we had math. We did math 4 days a week because math was so important. We had to get through so many things. But science, we did 2 days a week. History and English, we did 2 days a week. Bible, we did 2 days a week. We did our electives on Friday. And so that way the kids and the parents, maximum, were going to focus on 3 classes for an evening. Because before that, they were getting 6-7 classes worth of stuff, so they're getting the content. Plus, they're going to have to turn around and work on stuff. Parents were stressed. The teachers were stressed because they had to prep it every day. They had to grade it every day. So we were wanting to take some of that off of them. I did not want them to have to worry about stressing over learning a new LMS.
Yeah.
Or saying, hey, we're going to do something different just to be different. We wanted at least them to be comfortable because this is such a different time. Now going forward, we're going to find out what works and what didn't work, and then we can have those adjustments. I've got some teachers saying, man, I love Zoom so much that I'm going to start Zoom recording all my classes and just stick them on Google Classroom, so if a student needs to go back and rewatch anything, it's there. Or if a student's gone to a basketball game or football game, or they have to leave early, or they're sick, they have that content there.
Yep, that's good. What are you guys, so we also, not only did we get to do the blended learning, the online stuff, we got to be a part of an initiative that our school went, the whole high school went to a flex mod schedule, which means that it's not your bell schedule or your 7-period a day. It's like an alternate, like there's these modules in your day. Some classes you go to for 25 minutes, some 50, some an hour and 20, hour and 15 minutes. It like alternates throughout the week, and the idea is that you get this spare time in between there. And the thought is that this spare time that students get, because it's essentially cutting one class period a day. Like you get time in the week. Like if you took your whole time for the week and you think of like one period a day that you had a high school student. If you take that amount of time, you're essentially cutting out one class period a day from each of your classes. Now that for the whole week, that gives these students these pockets of time. And the thought was, this gives our students time that if they are struggling in a subject area, they can go see a teacher in that content area and get one-on-one tutoring. Because that's the idea. You talked about it early on. If we can personalize this learning, like deliver the content like in a large way. Here's a video of me teaching. You can deliver that. Then you use your in-class time for specific stuff, or they use that spare time to meet with the teacher, and it'd be like a one-on-one Zoom call now if it's virtual. But they would get to meet in person, one-on-one with these students, and also it rewarded the students. This is where we saw a big success, where a lot of students, your class moves too slow for them. They get it. They get it when you explain it the first time, but then you have to re-explain it for the other half of the class that didn't. They have the opportunity to be like, okay, I got that. What's next? And they get to move on and advance. So it's like technology bridges that gap that was making us all move at the same pace. Now it's like the kids that can move fast can move faster. The kids that move a little bit slower and need more help, they can get individualized help. What are some ways that you guys are looking at, if we go back in the fall in person, what are you guys looking at as far as schedule-wise, and then what are your thoughts behind that? Like, what are your reasons?
Here at Conway Christian, we are a college prep school. Yeah. And so we want to get kids ready for college. Well, there's more than just content that gets kids ready for college. And I feel like coming in, the first thing we did is we kind of looked at the schedule. Okay, we were on an 8-period day, but there's a lot of downtime for staff and for students. We had quite a few traditional study halls. So we went to a 7-period day so we could best utilize our time. Well, I'd started making the shift and adjustments to a flex mod system for next year. This was before the COVID came down and hit. We started playing with the schedule, started working on that. And the reason behind that is because for me, college preparedness is not just content. It's going to be how responsible are you with your time? How can you best use that time in class to get the material that you need? How can you best study for that? So we were starting to looking at that. We also, a lot of our kids take very, very strenuous courses. And so taking 7 or 8 of those in a day and then having that homework each night is a lot, and it's a lot on those kids. Plus, we're actually cramming that stuff down their throat as fast as possible. So with the flex mod system, like you said, Tyler, that there's certain days that, let's say science may meet for an hour and 25 minutes. That's a great time for them to be able to do a great hands-on lab, where they can do their pre-lab, do their lab, kind of start, and then kind of wrap that up. Where they may meet an hour and 25 minutes one day and 55 minutes the other 2 days, where an English class may meet 55 minutes 3 days a week in a 25-minute period once. So like if we're getting ready for that, that's more like what they're going to see in college. They also, I love the idea, and you kind of mentioned it too, that our teachers will have, they're going to have office hours. They're going to have ILT time, independent learning time, to where they're available to help kids. They're going to be walking around helping kids. One, they're going to get to know the kids. So they're building those relationships. What are you working on? What are you struggling with? And it may be a science teacher helping with math. You know what I mean? So it gives us the opportunity to build relationships, which is a huge core value for us, is relationship building. But also it gives those kids a chance to get that help, because each of those classes you have a 25-minute block. So if I have kids that are struggling in my class, I know all of them have a 25-minute block that I can pull them out.
Gosh, that scared me. I'm sorry. That terrified me a little bit.
Thought something was about to get us.
That was a wake-up call, everybody. That's a fun trick.
That is fun.
You know what I used to do? I've done it in class before as a teacher, and I've also done it in PDs. Is I will tell everybody, because I have a habit of running over and talking too much because I talk too much, and I would have everyone set their alarm. Hey Siri, set timer for 44 minutes or whatever. If it was a 45-minute, Siri just. Sorry Siri, I just turned on Siri.
Forget it, Siri.
Never mind Siri.
Go away.
And I would have everyone in the class set it, and then you start teaching. I'm ruining this entire thing. I'm so sorry, everybody. And so I would have everybody set that alarm, and because I pulled my clock out of my classroom when I was teaching.
Yeah.
Because I hated every student starting to put it
Sure.
in their bag and do all this. But then you also don't want them to be late to the next class, so I would have everybody set it for like a minute before, and then it was always really fun because we were in the middle of teaching or doing something, and then you would hear 30 all these alarms going off and music. It was great. It was fun.
It's like time to cut.
It's time to cut. It's like, let's go, guys. Let's get out of here. So that's just a thought. Sorry.
No, but with FlexMod, one of the things that we were kind of looking at is that a kid may have 7 classes they're having to do all that homework, and the teachers are prepping it. So at the max, a teacher may teach 5 classes a day. A kid may have 5 classes, more than likely 4. Mm-hmm. So that's just less for them to have to focus on. Now, there may be a little bit more work for them to focus on that night, but there's less subjects for them to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's a way for us to be able to kind of get them prepared for what college life's going to look like, where they will have 3 days a week or 2 days a week that they're going to classes, specific classes. But the material that gets a little bit more intense. So our teachers also in that time, they know that this is my time. This time is sacred, and this is the time for me to make sure my kids get their information. We could be doing some flipped classrooms if possible, if they want to do that. Where then there's a lot of discussion time. It could be a lot of in-depth lecture at that point, where there's discussion, debate. That's a time for interactive learning. Is what I keep just telling. It's got to be interactive learning. We're not going to just do homework time.
Yeah.
So, and plus then the kids know when I have flex time, it's a great time for me to get homework done, to get stuff accomplished.
Yep.
So we've been looking at FlexMod. Now, if we don't go back full time, then that may change. We may go back if we're back just virtually, or we're back part of the day, part of the week. Then we're going to make some adjustments. We started putting plans into place for multiple options.
Yeah, I think that everybody's on that game. But that's the nice thing too. When you incorporate that time, it's not as huge of a transition whenever it goes to, okay, you're going to be in class this much and the rest you do at home. Like I know in college, they say for every hour you're supposed to be in a class in person, you can assume triple that, and that's how much time you're going to be spending in that class outside of it.
Right.
And so one of the things that I always tell my teachers is kind of like the basics for a classroom model, because we have an innovative classroom model with our college where the students aren't in class as much as they are in a traditional college class, because it's web enhanced, so they get almost half, like 40 to 50% of that class is delivered online. And so my teachers, when I first told them this, their thought was, well, that cuts my class time in half. How am I going to get all my content out? I was like, well, how they have a thing called cell phones where you can record yourself, or the YouTube where you can find a video of someone teaching it and you can deliver it. So what I told them is the basics are, and goes for if you guys have like a model where you're in class a little bit of time, but you're out of class some. This is kind of like ground level zero for my advice to people. Whatever you were going to say to your class that they're not interacting on. So when I taught high school math, there was a good 20 minutes of every class where I'm just talking about the new topic, and they don't even have questions yet because they don't know what questions to have because I'm presenting the topic. And so what I tell teachers is, whatever you were going to say that they're not talking back to you on or asking you active questions, that is now delivered outside of class. We don't utilize our class time for things where it's like right now where I'm just talking. I'm just saying this. I would need, if there was 30 teachers here or 100 teachers here, they would be listening. They're passive, like a passive audience in this. They're taking notes and doing stuff, and they might have questions after, or like obviously in the chat if you're doing something like that, but they might have questions after. But right now, I'm just trying to get all the information out. All of that is now delivered via video. I can do a voice memo on my phone. I can find a YouTube video of someone already teaching that, send it to them. Hey guys, watch this before class. And then when class starts, that's when they utilize me as a teacher. I am there and I'm answering individual questions. Like you said earlier, personalizing it for them. I know how my students learn. That's where students become more important than we ever were when we were just the purveyors of knowledge and information. Like, it's education's changing, the world's changing. Like, used to, we had to memorize every president in order. Now I can go, hey Siri, who was the 17th president of the United States? And it's going to tell me, instead of me having to like go in and memorize it. Like, the information's there. So I don't know, as far as like just the overall, like what you've seen in the evolution of education since you were teaching in a traditional classroom with something like, it's hard to imagine, like I taught math. It's hard to imagine, like, it's hard for students to learn math online.
Right.
I get that. Because I live that. You taught art for a while. And so it's like, and science, which are two other subjects that it's very difficult to learn online. What are some advice you'd have for teachers that are trying to do these subjects where it's less, here's the content, it's more like, I have this little problem here, or I'm messed up here. What are some, or I'm having to draw this outside of this. What are some advice and thoughts you have for teachers that are trying to deal with that?
Well, I think, something in the creative field like art, one thing we saw is you're not going to have the materials. Like, so you may not have your oil paints or your acrylics or your, whatever, your pastels or whatever you're using. So, there were so many cool things online that we saw that kids were doing in the arts, just with what was available.
Yeah.
As far, even, they're maybe doing art based on cooking. Way food prepared and what it looked like, or outside going and finding flowers and rocks and stuff and creating things with that. So you can be creative in what you have available to you. Like you said, there's so many things online that you see. There's, virtual dissection stuff. It's not the same as putting your hands on it.
It's true.
But the more that you can give them the opportunities to see, there's so many videos. YouTube is such a wide wealth of knowledge that you can find so many great things there that different people are teaching, or different people are saying things, some of the similar things you're saying, but they're being able to do it in a different way. Those kids are have a better chance of learning that. I think with innovation, to me, this is the biggest thing with innovation. Innovation is a change. It's going to constantly change. It has to change based on your clientele. It has to change based on what the needs of your community is, kind of like we talked about earlier. If your community needs change, because of a pandemic, what's the needs now? All of a sudden, there's more need in healthcare than was before. So we have to be able to provide that for our kids. One thing we're going to try to do here now is, because we're small, we don't have staff members to be able to teach medical terminology and nursing, intro to nursing and stuff like that. But we can definitely do it via virtual. Yeah. So we've contacted an LMS. We're going to use that to be able to offer some stuff for our kids. So we have more kids that maybe would want to go into the healthcare fields, because there is more need in that now. Yeah. Also, we're going to have to look at the needs or the strengths of our staff. As this change, we've had some staff members that are leaving us. We've got some new ones coming in. We want to take the strengths of our staff members and build on those. As far as math, let's say we want to go back to the foundations of math to strengthen that. Yeah. So that's what's going to make the upper level math even stronger, is to be able to go back and do that. That's based on the strengths of some of our staff members that we have that are here. So I think that is very important as well.
I agree. That's awesome. So before we close out, is there anything else you'd like to add? Thoughts, ideas, resources, anything you can think of that you would want to tell teachers as they learn and adapt and grow with something that a lot of them may not be familiar with or feel like they signed up for? When you go to school to be a teacher for 4 years, or however long it takes to be a teacher for you. Some people like to go the scenic route.
Right.
I like to call it. So whenever you do that, enjoy the ride. So whenever we get out, we don't anticipate, I'm going to teach in this environment, or I'm going to teach like this, and a lot of them get thrown off by it. Do you have any advice for anybody who's trying to help expand the innovation, their mindset, their culture, anything at all that you would throw out at people?
I would say 100% go watch your coworkers teach.
That's good.
Like, I offer that to all of our staff members. Like, if you want to go watch anybody in our building teach, let me know. I'll get your classes covered if we need to do that. Use your prep period. Use your ILT, which is your independent learning time, or those office hours. Just let me know. We'll get it covered if we need to. And we want you to go watch each other teach. Because one, you're going to learn from watching your colleagues, the ones who've been doing it for years, and the brand new ones. Like, if you've been doing this for 25 years, go watch the brand new kids teach, because they're bringing in ideas. I love the idea of going and watching people in the surrounding area teach, even maybe not even in our school district, is to go watch other people, see what they're doing. Yeah. I offer that opportunity. I mean, I'll get you a sub to go do that. If anybody wants to come here and see what we're doing, I mean, feel free. Look at all different styles, from public school to private school to charter school. There's so many awesome ideas out there. Don't get set in your ways.
That's good.
I think the big thing is we look at kids that get left behind, and that was our biggest push at Minor Academy, was not leaving kids behind, making sure everybody has the same opportunity to graduate. A lot of our kids there, and one of the main reasons I feel like we started Minor Academy several years back, led by you and the staff members back then at Bauxite, was we had kids that wouldn't graduate, that would basically, they were dropping out because they had to work. They lost interest. Maybe they were behavior issues because of them sitting in a straight row for 15 minutes. They just couldn't handle it. So we got to know each one of those kids, and we saw those kids succeed and grow, and we really built relationships with them, and we poured into them. We call it alternative education, right? ALE, alternative learning environment, right? It seemed like a bad term. Well, honestly, alternative learning should be something we do for everybody, and that's what our goal is here, is to get to know each individual student. And that's my goal in education. Get to know each individual student, have our staff know them. Our staff they don't even have duties. I take all the duties. My duty for them is to be out in the halls in between classes and get to know the kids. Talk to them, get to know them.
Build relationships.
Because if they build those relationships, they get to know where they're at. They get to know which ones struggle, which ones do well, which ones they could use to maybe help teach and peer teach each other. Man, our kids will grow. And that's the whole point, is like, don't leave any of those kids behind. So I think that is our point. Even though we're a college prep school, we still have kids that struggle. And we have kids that do well. And so we've got to find that way to be able to reach every one of those. Because, again, my goal is to find out where each student wants to go and where they're at and how to best get them there. So we don't look at a kid that's labeled special ed or a kid that's labeled gifted. Man, we just try to figure out where they're at and where they want to go, because they all have some gains they need to be made. So that's our goal. And to me, for an innovative school, it's find whatever way you can to get those kids where they can be. And that's, to me, that's where you're being innovative. That's where the innovation comes from. It's not based on the school building. It's not based on the schedule. It's not based on the classes you offered. Honestly, it's based on the people. It's based on the staff. It's based on your administration. It's based on your kids and the families that are involved in that. And to me, if you can find a way to bring and meld those things together, using technology, using relationships, then you've done your job as a teacher. So, I mean, that honestly, innovation comes down to that. Innovation is equal to relationships, So, but I do have one other question for you.
For me? Oh,
yeah, I got a question for you.
Okay. Wow, flipping the script. No, I'm just kidding.
So, I've always wondered, French press or pour over?
You know what? I'm a French press guy because I know how to do it. Pour over?
Give me that. Yeah.
Pour over, it's like, it looks really cool, and I like the idea of it because it's always like the glass with the leather, and it just looks really cool.
It does look cool.
But I don't understand how I'm supposed to do it, and I've seen people do it, and they're very eloquent with it, and I'm just like, I'm just going to pour it into this glass thing and wait 4 minutes, and then I'm going to drink the coffee.
Well, I go to French press as well because of the same thing. It's just efficiency.
And more. And
it's
you can drink
delicious.
like 2 or 3 cups a day.
It's delicious. I only drink 1 cup a day. I mean,
really?
Maybe this cup.
So impressive.
Once at a time.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good, man. That's good. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much. And all his information is in the description. If you want to check him out and hit him up and see kind of what they're doing here. He's right. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you don't experience other people's teaching styles and what they're doing, how are you going to know if you can be better? So
That's right.
That's great, man. Thank you guys. Y'all be good. Stay sweet. Never stop learning. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to end this.